everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. So Margot Robbie has been making the rounds as of late, doing interviews for the upcoming Suicide Squad film directed by James Gunn that is going to be coming out at the beginning of August here. And apparently someone during one of her interviews mentioned to her the fact that Harley Quinn dies in the Zack Snyder Justice League timeline here, and she was totally unaware of that. So let's go check out the article that discusses this. This comes to us from Cinema Blend. Margot Robbie reacts to Harley Quinn's death in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Comic book movies are an insanely popular genre in the film world, but they're also tricky. Different filmmakers each have their own vision, and actress Margot Robbie knows this all too well. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad will mark her third appearance as Harley Quinn, each of which was helmed by another director. Harley Quinn was also killed off in the nightmare sequences of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Robbie has reacted to this news for the very first time. While not seen on screen, Harley Quinn did manage to factor into the 4-hour vision of Zack Snyder's Justice League, now played on HBO Max. In the nightmare scene, it was revealed that Harley died in Batman's arms, a fact that Margot Robbie was seemingly unaware of until she was doing press for the Suicide Squad. When asked her opinion on this plot twist, this Oscar-nominated actress responded, honestly saying, "What? I didn't know that." She laughed. "Thanks for telling me," quote unquote. Well, there you have it. While comic book fans are collectively waiting on pins and needles for any new update about the DCEU, it's a different experience being within it. Margot Robbie has been keeping busy, so it seems she wasn't privy to her character's fate in the alternate DC timeline, because you got to remember, the Zack Snyder Justice League does not, technically, it's not really canon in the DCEU moving forward. It's kind of an off-world, its own storyline, so to speak. Margot Robbie's comments to EW may surprise fans who have spent hours dissecting and discussing every frame of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but not every actor in the DCU have done the same, especially since the events of the long-awaited blockbuster aren't officially canon. The Suicide Squad will be arriving on HBO Max at the same time as theaters. You can find the link for the streaming service there. For those who don't remember, you can rewatch Joker and Batman's interaction from the Justice League's nightmare sequence. In there, it's the reference to Harley Quinn, one that seemingly never crossed the desk of Margot Robbie herself. Despite being caught off guard about Harley Quinn's off-screen death in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Margot Robbie doesn't seem too concerned about that particular plot twist affecting her future in the DCEU. She explained this dynamic, saying, quote, "I guess it's kind of like the comics. The film version of the DC universe. I actually think they're a lot like the comics. You pick up one comic and something's happening, and then you pick up the next comic, and maybe that character's not alive. Maybe that character's not with that person. Maybe that character looks completely different. Each movie is its own sort of thing, and I think that works in the comic book world, and I think that works in the DC film world as well. It's not like Marvel, where everything is more obviously connected and linked in a more linear way. It feels like there's so many adjacent stories, worlds, and films happening at the same time, just like there are in the comics." She's actually got a point when you really think about it. While the Marvel Cinematic Universe prides itself on serialized storytelling and crossover events, the DC Extended Universe has taken another strategy over the past few years. Instead, stories are more capsulated, with directors given freedom to create without worrying about weaving the narrative into the greater universe. As such, Harley Quinn can die off-screen in one project without it ever affecting Margot Robbie. Moviegoers can't wait to see Margot Robbie's third time playing Harley Quinn when the Suicide Squad hits theaters next month. James Gunn has praised Robbie's performance in the movie and has been teasing her wild action sequences, and with the movie's R rating, there's no telling what type of debauchery Harley will partake in. The Suicide Squad will hit theaters and HBO Max on August 6th. So yes, I mean, this isn't really anything out of the ordinary. There's a lot of times where actors are not privy to or fully understand where their character may be going in the future. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, even some of their actors don't quite know exactly where their character is going to end up until they get to the point where they need to film those scenes. They're just kind of along for the ride. They don't always know everything that's going to. Now, they do know a lot of stuff about their characters, absolutely, but only what they need to know at that given time. And maybe they've researched the character, things like that. Not necessarily deaths. Now, the DCEU, obviously, it's a little different because the DCEU, as she mentioned in her quote, is kind of its own thing. It doesn't necessarily tie into everything that's going on, much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe does. So the DCEU is kind of set apart in that regard, and it's unique. It's not trying to copy anymore what Marvel was doing. Now, granted, there for a while, the DCEU tried to do the Avengers model, where you introduce a character, and then they didn't introduce certain characters the right way, and then they tried to build the Justice League movie. Then that movie flopped by under Joss Whedon's direction, and unfortunately, according to this article and many others, that version of the Justice League, directed by Joss Whedon, is the version that the DCEU considers canon in their main storyline. So the Zack Snyder's Justice League film, where Harley Quinn's death is mentioned, is not considered canon in their storyline. So while I kind of dislike that, I prefer Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think as many moviegoers and DC fans do, it also does. There's a lot of things that Zack Snyder's Justice League does that DC don't want to follow up on, especially some of the nightmare sequences and things like that. Unfortunately, they tried to, play and figure that part out in Joss Whedon's Justice League, like the whole nightmare sequence where, the Flash goes back in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and warns Bruce Wayne about, she's the key, Lois, she's the key. They tried to play that off in the Joss Whedon, version of the Justice League by, she was the one to kind of calm Superman down after his resurrection. She was the key to do that. That's not exactly what that meant. If you've seen the Zack Snyder Justice League, that's not exactly what that means. What they mean is, Lois Lane was the one who gets murdered by Darkseid in the Justice League 2 film that sets up, Superman becoming this evil, dark, god that rules the earth out of hatred and vengeance because of that. And, of course, DC kind of felt like they didn't want to take that direction, especially with the Superman character, I'm sure. And, of course, Batman was supposed to die and things like that. But if you want to know more about what was going to eventually happen in the Zack Snyder Justice League version of the story, there is a fan movement out there that is going to be creating a motion comic that is going to be done for charity. And they are going to animate these into the storyboards that Zack Snyder released into a motion comic. So you can go check those out when those are released. I believe they said later this year. So at least we'll get some sort of resolution, even though it's fan made. It's not. I'm sure Zack Snyder's going to put his approval on it, though. And if it's done well, at least we'll get some sort of version of this. It may not be the version we all want when it comes to a full-blown movie or an HBO Max series or something like that. And who's to say we still could at some point if Discovery Plus and their merger with Warner Media and things like that, going down the line here in about another year and a half, we still could get some resolution or a continuation of the Zack Snyder storylines here. But as of right now, they've kind of veered off one way, and the DCEU is continuing on a different path. So this isn't going to affect Margot Robbie too much. I believe she has come out and stated yesterday that the fact that she is going to probably be taking some time off from the Harley Quinn character here in the next few years or so. So that's perfectly fine. She's been in 3 films now after the Suicide Squad is released. So she's deserving of a break for sure, and I'm sure she'll come back to this character whenever Warner Brothers and DC come calling for her to come back to it. Hopefully in a Suicide Squad 3 or something like that. James Gunn, hopefully if this film is good, we'll come back for a 3rd film, and maybe we'll get Will Smith back, coming back for Suicide Squad 3 technically, even though it's not considered a sequel to the original Suicide Squad. But it still takes place. It's got some of the same characters from that movie, so it's definitely still a part of the storyline canon. It just isn't going to reference the first Suicide Squad movie that much. So I understand what they're trying to do, but again, it's still set in the main DCEU timeline. But yeah, DC is it's much more confusing than Marvel right now for sure, because they've got this movie doing one thing, that movie doing another. Then they've got the main storyline that they're trying to tell with all their interconnected stuff with the Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Flash, things like that. What they're going to do with like Batman, Superman, and the Justice League, we don't know at this point. We'll have to wait and see. But DC's got a template that they want to follow through with here. They've got a plan that they want to try to, get the fan base to try to, unite again under what they're doing over there at Warner Media and Discovery eventually. And of course, the DCEU hopefully will rebound in the next year and a half with some of the movies that they've got coming out. I have high hopes for them. Let's see what they do. But until then, it's interesting that Margot Robbie wasn't aware of her character's fate. But again, that's not completely out of the ordinary. But the real question here is, guys, what do you guys think about Margot Robbie's reaction to the fact that Harley Quinn eventually dies in Batman's arms in the Snyder Cut version of the timeline here? Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.
We about to turn it on.